Christian. Have you ever asked God for forgiveness? That's a tough question. I don't think in terms of, I'm a religious person. It was over. He was the greatest guy, and then, he passed away, but he was a great, he wrote The Power of Positive Thinking, which is a great book.
But have you ever asked God for forgiveness?
I'm not sure I have. I just go on and try and do a better job from there. I don't think so. I think if I do something wrong, I think I just try and make it right. I don't bring God into that picture. I don't. Now, when I take, when we go to church and when I drink mother wine, which is about the only wine I drink, and have my little cracker, I guess that's a form of asking for forgiveness. And I do that as often as possible because I feel cleansed, okay? But, to me, that's important. I do that. But in terms of officially, I could say absolutely, and everybody, I don't think in terms of that. I think in terms of let's go on and let's make it right.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton say they want to make abortion a constitutional right in the state. They made the announcement at Barnard College Monday. The audience cheered as Clinton talked about women's equality.
Yes, it is an economic issue, but more than that, it's an issue of fairness, equality, justice, and opportunity. I fiercely believe, as I said more than 2 decades ago, that human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights.
And I want to pass this year a constitutional amendment that writes into the Constitution a provision protecting a woman's right to control her own reproductive health. We'll pass it next year. We'll put it on the ballot. We'll write it into the Constitution.
Governor Cuomo first made the call for an amendment last year.
Where we are no longer a Christian nation, at least not just. We are also a Jewish nation, a Muslim nation, and a Buddhist nation, and a Hindu nation, and a nation of non-believers. And even if we did have only Christians in our midst, if we expelled every non-Christian from the United States of America, whose Christianity would we teach in the schools? Would it be James Dobson's or Al Sharpton's? Which passages of Scripture should guide our public policy? Should we go with Leviticus, which suggests slavery is okay, and that eating shellfish is an abomination? Or we could go with Deuteronomy, which suggests stoning your child if he strays from the faith? Or should we just stick to the Sermon on the Mount, a passage that is so radical that it's doubtful that our own Defense Department would survive its application? So before we get carried away, let's read our Bibles now. Folks haven't been reading their Bible. Democracy demands that the religiously motivated translate their concerns into universal rather than religion-specific values. What do I mean by this? It requires that their proposals be subject to argument and amenable to reason. Now, I may be opposed to abortion for religious reasons, to take one example, but if I seek to pass a law banning the practice, I can't simply point to the teachings of my church or evoke God's will. I have to explain why abortion violates some principle that is accessible to people of all faiths, including those with no faith at all. Now, this is going to be difficult for some who believe in the inerrancy of the Bible, as many evangelicals do. But in a pluralistic society, we have no choice. Politics depends on our ability to persuade each other of common aims based on a common reality. It involves compromise, the art of what's possible. And at some fundamental level, religion doesn't allow for compromise. It's the art of the impossible. If God's spoken, then followers are expected to live up to God's edicts, regardless of the consequences. Now, to base one's own life on such uncompromising commitments may be sublime, but to base our policy making on such commitments would be a dangerous thing. And if you doubt that, let me just give you an example. We all know the story of Abraham and Isaac. Abraham's ordered by God to offer up his only son. Without argument, he takes Isaac up to the mountaintop, he binds them to the altar, raises his knife, prepares to act as God commanded. Now, we know things worked out. You know, God sends down angel to intercede at the very last minute. Abraham passes God's test of devotion. But it's fair to say that if any of us leaving this church saw Abraham on the roof of a building raising his knife, we would at the very least call the police and expect the Department of Children and Family Services to take Isaac away from Abraham. No matter how religious they may be or may not be, people are tired of seeing faith used as a tool of attack.
And so I'm deeply involved in our church, and my faith has been a kind of the foundation of my encouragement when I was in trouble or failed on something, and given me a new opportunity or motivation to reach for greater things in my own life. And I think that I never have run across any really serious conflicts between my political obligations and my religious faith.
How about gay marriage?
That's no problem with me. You know, I think everybody should have a right to get married, regardless of their sex. And the only thing I would draw a line on, I wouldn't be in favor of the government being able to force a local church congregation to perform gay marriages if they didn't want to. Right. But those two partners should be able to go to the local courthouse or to a different church and get married. That's no problem. I have had a problem with abortion, you know, and this has been a long-time problem of mine. I have a hard time believing that Jesus, for instance, would approve abortions unless it was because of rape or incest or if the mother's life was in danger. Yeah. So I've had that struggle, but my oath of office was to obey the Constitution and the laws of this country as interpreted by the Supreme Court. So I went along with that, but that's been the only caveat. So when I was
would Jesus approve gay marriage?
I believe he would. I believe Jesus would. I don't know how. I don't have any verse in Scripture.
No. But I just intuitively, yeah. No,
I believe that Jesus would approve gay marriage, but I'm not. That's just my own personal belief. Yes. Yeah. I think Jesus would encourage any sort of love affair if it was honest and sincere, and was not damaging to anyone else. And I don't see that gay marriage damages anyone else.
And a special thanks to the members of the Roosevelt family who are here, and to one who is not, Eleanor, who made sure that the four freedoms were included in the preamble to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. I know that because, as all of you famously learned when I served as president, my wife, now the Secretary of State, was known to commune with Eleanor on a regular basis. And so she called me last night on her way home from Peru to remind me to say that Eleanor had talked to her and reminded her that I should say that.
And I'm going to remind his Holy Father how important his voice is in making it easier for politicians like me to be able to kind of stand and defend our positions that are, I think, very important positions to take.
Mr. President, final question.
Yes, sir.
You said famously, when you looked into Vladimir Putin's eyes, you saw his soul.
Yeah.
When you look into Benedict XVI's eyes, what do you see?
God.
Good way to end the interview.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
This interview wouldn't be for God, right? So, I think that God should get a lot of credit. I was blessed by God, and a lot of things that I did in my life I was blessed to be born with parents, with a mother that gave us so much love, and the father that gave us the discipline and the strict upbringing and all that brought structure into the whole life. But I think that we cannot just rely on God. We have to also do our own work. And, you know, I think the secret to success, it doesn't matter if you come from a little village in Tal or from a big town. There's one thing that you have to do, and that is you have to first of all work your ass off.
So when I'm president of the United States, I'm taking a fight to this issue like folks will have never seen before, because we're better than this as a country. Uniquely American problem. No other country has this kind of carnage. More people in my lifetime have died in this nation due to gun violence and in all the wars from the Revolutionary War to now. We are not going to give thoughts and prayers, which to me is just bull. And I'm sorry to say that as a man of faith, but I was taught that faith without works is dead. We're going to bring a fight with everything that I have to solve this problem, because it's solvable and we know it.
So he says he's